Mulaka is a fascinating new game for home consoles and PC that draws upon northern Mexican culture and the stories of the Tara Humanarara. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, it's a bit of a tongue twister. You journey as one of their shamans, a Sukuruame. Once again, sorry if I totally butchered that, who unites with 4 demigods to save the land from the Lord of the Underworld. I've put a few hours into it and came away with 2 very distinct, different impressions. 1. You should absolutely play this game. 2. You should also absolutely not have to endure its combat. Let me explain. It makes sense that Mulaka, an epic adventure spanning multiple hub worlds and increasingly massive boss fights, would have combat as a focus, but instead it becomes the focus. You'll be beating down foes so often that you start to forget about the other elements Mulaka should be building up, which is a problem because Mulaka has a lot more to offer. Mulaka, at its heart, is a journey between intuitive puzzles and rewards for exploring. You want to reach the horizons before you and uncover the world's secrets. In these moments, you can feel Mulaka breathe and start to immerse yourself in this rich setting, only for it to grind to a halt because you entered a circular room. While you can encounter some enemies just roaming about, this subtler approach is rarely taken. Within the first 2 hours, Mulaka's combat arenas transform from brief challenges into mandatory toll boosts. It doesn't matter if your opponents even fit the environment, they're thrown at you regardless. Mulaka is already a sizable experience with some seriously harrowing moments. During one of the best dungeons, there's a huge tentacle monster that combines all of the core tenets: navigation, Zelda-like fights, and careful use of your spear, all without an ounce of hand-holding. You feel like a fabled hero of legend upon besting the beast. It captures precisely what Mulaka is going for, and it would have been far more impactful if you weren't stopped repeatedly to beat up some grab-bag mythological monsters barring your path. These fights aren't for educational value either. Killing mantis soldiers ad nauseum didn't prepare me for the fight with the giant tentacle boss. A 30-second platforming section with environmental hazards did. There's this brief moment where you need to use all the same skills as in the boss fight, but it's just to surmount a few pillars to your next goal. You snipe some magic sapping spirits with your spear, take out a few more with brawling, use your second sight ability and woodpecker form to reach the top of the chasm, and arrive at the end without realizing you just practiced everything you'll need. This happens once, then never again. There's like over 5 different combat encounters. The ideas Mulaka wants to convey are completely within its reach, but it undervalues them in favor of padding. One extra encounter here or there is fine, but locking another boss fight behind 3 additional combat encounters that are actually harder than the boss itself? There's no narrative or gameplay reason for this. It's literally a straight line of combat encounters until you reach the end. You don't get more arbitrary than that. And the worst part is, this doesn't have to happen. Games like Jotun, Hellblade, and Titanfall 2 exist, and are just as, if not sometimes more, engaging than a game with extras to pad the runtime. It may sound absurd, but I firmly believe that Mulaka would be a genuinely stronger game by having less of this content. I understand the desire for games worth their price of admission, but there comes a point where you aren't offering us a meatier experience, but one saturated in fat. If we bite through the fat and swallow with a groan, maybe we can still get to that juicy meat, but the fat's unnecessary. Slow burns to bigger fights can work. Hello, Shadow of the Colossus. We don't need to be dazzled or harried every step of the way, but instead educated engagingly. Every sequence should be building to something, not just buying time. Even games full of combat, like Dark Souls, make sure that every enemy encounter is pushing you in the right direction and educating you on something. Also, novelty is important, but so is consistency. Giving each map its own internal theme is critical, and breaking from that theme undercuts all the work done. Mulaka is so close to properly grasping this that it hurts. It's an adventure, not a Diablo clone. We don't expect to slay the dragon every 10 minutes, and it's supposed to mean something when we do. It's heartbreaking to think of the hours that went into combat systems that could have gone towards something better. There's even a terrible upgrade tree that solely exists for the combat, just dangling haphazardly off of Mulaka like an ugly growth. Mulaka doesn't need an upgrade tree. especially when your most useful abilities are earned naturally through the story. Mulaka is a great adventure game, worthy of praise. From the sweeping audiovisual landscape to the intuitive exploration, there's a lot I loved about my time with it. Unfortunately, the hordes of enemies stick out like a sore on an otherwise unblemished face. Mulaka could have been the 3D answer to Jotun, or an indie-scale mini Breath of the Wild, and it's a shame to see that potential wasted. I can only hope that the developers at Lienzo and other studios take this sort of misstep into consideration with future projects. Overall, I recommend it highly, but this is a problem that they really need to take into consideration.